That's all right. I think that's why it took me this long too, because like I really wanted to take my time, because a drum program is it's always gonna be sounding like a machine.
One of the first songs was kind of by accident from Holy Grail. When do you think this album will come out? Well, hey everyone, how's it going? Today you're joining me with Alex Lee again. No, I interviewed him a few months ago to chat more about just him as an artist and kind of how he came to be. And this interview, I kind of want to dive in more into not the past, but more about kind of the present and what he's up to now. That said, we're all kind of stuck in COVID. So, Alex, I know we talked a little bit, but I guess what has been your main kind of focus, or how are you kind of killing time now that we're 7 weeks into the whole COVID thing? How's your life kind of been since then?
It's been nothing but nonstop writing. I've been in writing mode for since like day one of like the whole situation where with my job we closed, and I've been put on furlough. So I'm just waiting for like the green light to go back to work. But with that, within like you were saying, with these 7 weeks, I've just been nonstop recording a few songs as far as like demos, and then going into like actual recording. Mm-hmm. So what I mean by that is a little bit of Holy Grail stuff, and then also really focusing on this solo album that I'm hoping to release sometime this year, but like focus more so of just doing it in like release a couple singles, and then at the end just kind of release the album in its entirety. Mm-hmm. So that's all I've been doing lately here. But it's not too bad. I've never thought I had this much time to really work on music. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty awesome. I mean, it sucks in the situation that we're in, but it's kind of like a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I mean, there's definitely like the darker sides of what's going on, which is just like, man, damn. But on the positive note, right? Like, you do have more time to just get more in tune with yourself, right? Which I feel like is what you're into. So, okay, cool. So on the solo album thing, is that something you just, I'm stuck at COVID, so I'm gonna do it, or is that something you were planning on before that?
Yeah, well, actually, it's been like a 3-year process where I made a song just for myself, and because it was in an area where I was writing for Holy Grail, and one of the songs just kind of fit more so in like the melodic elements. So it was more so of, that should be like a solo, like instrumental song, maybe for Holy Grail. But then the more I thought about it was like, I've never really released anything just by myself, just as me, as like Alex, the artist. So that's kind of what struck it. I think that was like 2017 or 2016 at the end of somewhere around there, more or less. But that's where the general interest kind of sparked, was with that first song. It was kind of like an accident that happened to become like the start of the solo album. But primarily, in my band situation, I focused heavily on Holy Grail. But since I believe we're taking like a hiatus right now for, it's been a few years since like the third album release. I wanted to take this time to kind of just really focus on working on my own material. But in the meantime, with like the full-time job, it wasn't something that I wasn't able to fully accomplish, because by the time I get home from work, it's like 11 o'clock, an hour before midnight. So there's not really much you can do. And during that time, it's really funny because, mentally and physically, I'm pretty much, fatigued from work. It takes a while to practice and get into like the mojo per se, to get into that like recording groove essentially. So with this situation, it's been great because like, I've been able to just wake up, get my cup of coffee, go through some emails, kind of stretch out, and like get ready into like the whole process. So that's what I've been doing from day in out.
Yeah, very cool. So then how? So I know like I've seen you like on your Instagram videos, YouTube videos, but now that you're doing like a solo album, are you gonna be doing all the drums, the bass? Is it all going to be through like
Oh yeah,
software?
it. I've seen a lot of people, and this is, I believe, what really has been lagging me to really pull through like completely with this solo. I mean, I believe like if I really set my mind to, I could have gotten this done like maybe 2 years ago. But it's just the general aspect of like the planning. That's the part that I would say it's the hardest part of like this whole project, is the fact that, you know, I can release the music just by myself with like drums, bass, and everything programmed, but it does lose a lot of like the feeling of like a full band, because, you know, a drum program is always gonna be sounding like a machine. So if you have a real drummer in the mix, it really brings out the organic feel of the song, rather than just being just a you know, a drum machine. It's really interesting because for some people, they don't really think much about that, but like once you lose a lot of like the human feel to it, it really changes the overall sound. So that's one thing, you know, I'm gonna find a drummer to bash out the songs basically once it's all set. I'm basically planning like a recording date. So once I have like I would say like eight songs or so, and then I'm going to be, you know, hitting the studio for the actual drum sessions, and then for bass I'll be doing myself and all the guitars. But I guess the biggest scare, it's mainly just like getting you know, artwork, logos, you know, website situated. You know, it's you're basically creating like your own business per se, you know, from the ground up. So I at this point, it's like the easiest thing to do right now is to actually make the music, and then the hardest part's to actually, you know, use, you know, whatever resources you have to get everything else ready, you know, or the people that you do know or that you would like to hire for artwork, and if I wanted to start merch too for t-shirts or, you know, anything like that. Or if I'm going to do vinyls and limited edition, like bundles, you know, like with the whole like Kickstarter route kind of thing, but without doing an actual Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So
are you going to literally just like solo all of that? Or do you feel, okay, I'm good at music, let me reach out to someone that could probably do the business side a little bit more? Or
with that, I don't, I've always been really, close with like the contacts from like the record label. So like I have some contacts that I can actually, you know, hit up and get recommendations, things like that, because some people are really good at doing everything themselves. Like, you know, they're artists, you know, and they have just, you know, multiple hats that they wear. For me, I can probably get as close to maybe like getting like a concept art or a logo done, and then, you know, hiring somebody to either do it like on Photoshop and Illustrator, because that's, you know, that's not my forte. So that's something, I'll definitely, you know, get some other people into the mix. But then it's the matter of like saving the cash for it. And then now with the situation, you know, it's just kind of like it's kind of at a standstill, but at the same time, it gives me a lot of time to actually like plan for everything, and then just to kind of really dial in the songs, and then just worry about that, you know, after.
Very cool. So I want to kind of go back a bit. So that's cool to know, but I'm very curious about like, so you're already kind of in this head, like, I'm going to build this thing. But at one point you said, one of the first songs was kind of by accident from Holy Grail. From like I guess it is a business standpoint. Is there anything where it's like, oh, well, sure, that's an accident, but you did that while you're writing for Holy Grail, so you can't use that? Like, is there anything like that you have to deal with?
Oh, no, not at all. Because it was, I mean, because with the guys, we basically, we upload to a server like all of our songs that we've written. And for the song that I was preparing to upload, I didn't upload the song to the actual server. So it's not actually listed as a Holy Grail song, but it was one of those things where in the midst of recording, I just I thought to myself like, well, you know what, this actually sounds more so of like an instrumental piece, and it'd be pretty cool to actually start that as like, you know, the first collection of like songs for like the solo album.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Didn't you? And I'm totally gonna telephone butcher this name. Did you ever put out? Was it called the Lost Chapter? That you're putting?
Yeah. So that was what happened was like I got my stuff stolen in Canada.
Yeah.
On one of our tours, and we did like a little like GoFundMe kind of thing or Kickstarter, but not like an official Kickstarter. It was just more of like, this is my email. You know, if whatever you can do would really help.
Yeah.
And so, in the midst of that, as like a thank you, I wrote like it's like a three song EP.
Okay.
And we consider the Lost Chapter. So, and that basically reflects, you know, my gratitude to everybody who contributed to helping me out.
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing. I don't know if I would, you know, bring those songs back into the actual album, because it's been so long. I think that was like around 2014 or so, or 2015. Mm-hmm. And I'm a fan of like not reviving songs that have already been established, because, you know, I always see it kind of like my I would say like, you know, parts in time, you know, where you're able to kind of see where you're established at that time, you know?
Yeah.
So kind of like if you see like the Mona Lisa, you know, he's not going to revise that, you know, piece back in the day, you know? It's just that's what it was at the time, and, you know, that's what he was capable of drawing. So that's my thing.
Yeah. So then when a band's like good, like old school bands, like take their first album and then redo it, what they do now, do you think like, oh, that's cool, but that's like a cover now compared to what the original is?
I think it really depends on how they do it. Usually, you'll see it as like a remastered track of, you know, XYZ. And for the most part, that's kind of cool, because, you know, at the time they didn't have like the technology that we've had today to get the kind of sounds that we do get in modern music. So it's kind of nice to hear what it would sound like, you know, with what we have today. But when they do like, you know, retakes and they do start to change it, that's when it kind of does lose its like original flavor. But it really depends. Like, yeah, it's kind of like, it's cool when they do it just to kind of revise the way it sounds. But then once it's, you know, completely changed and they do all this other stuff, then that's where it gets kind of weird.
Yeah. Okay, very cool. I was always curious. I know I hear people complain about that. I was like, I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
It makes sense that they would do that, but, you know, what are you going to do? Okay. Well, then, bring it back to your album. So do you have a name in mind, or names you've been playing with that you're for it?
Right now, no, actually. Nothing comes to mind right now. But usually at like the very end of like the process of like recording the songs, and you know, when I get together with, you know, whichever engineer that I do work with, you know, with the working titles, usually that's when it kind of it kicks into gear. It's kind of funny. It's always been that way with me, where the titles kind of naturally come together at the end.
Yeah.
But nothing like set in stone right now.
Very cool. Very cool. That's cool, man. That's great to hear. So do you one thing I'm curious about, because so you've been doing music for a long time now, right? You did on your own, then you did Bonded, and Holy, and now you're doing a solo. I guess I feel like I've always heard stories of people like once they start to get big, then they kind of trail off and like not do music anymore. What's kept you kind of focused and like still persevering through kind of all these different chapters in your life, if you will?
I think it's just really understanding who you are as a person.
Okay.
You know, because if you have a good grasp of who you are, things like I wouldn't say like fame, you know, because you know, with the metal like community, it's so little compared to like, you know, like the pop industry. So I don't know, it's just knowing that you're not some, big time artist that has everything. You're still living, under a house like everyone else.
Yeah.
And I think that's, because this is my passion, I've never let it really, I guess, corrupt me to become like a big shot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too, it's just, I think too, we haven't really hit that that starstruck, moment where you can't go anywhere without someone recognizing you.
Yeah.
It'll happen here and there, but it's not like at that kind of level. But I mean, even if it was at that point, I feel like I know myself well enough to know that it's going to be the same thing. Regardless if I have like 1 million followers on Instagram, I'm still going to, still stream and do my guitar things that I always do.
Yeah, I jump in those every often.
yeah, exactly. So it's kind of funny how like, a lot of these people, like once they establish that kind of like title of like Insta famous or whatever, or just famous in general, they almost kind of like forget the people that kind of helped them there, or their actual friends, or like their original followers, things like that. It's almost like, because they're at that level, they can't really establish, communications with, anyone below them.
Oh, like they grown their atmosphere. They let in there has to be at that level as well. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like it would almost be like, kind of like what happens. Like you can't just like run up to Dave Mustaine and start hanging out and talking with them. He's gonna be like, who are you?
Yeah.
Get out of here. That type of thing. Fan or not, it's just like, it's kind of interesting. It's like, they have like those like regiments,
Mm-hmm.
So I've never been a big fan of that. It's just kind of like anyone that I meet and talk to, they're just, ordinary people.
Yeah.
So regardless of like status.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any fans that are fans of you because of like your yo-yo stuff at all, or is all your fans purely like music fans?
There are some. I do know that there are some that have I've met within like like the yo-yo community, per se, where I've been to competitions and things like that. And well, it's funny, not even that, but like I've had some fans that were fans of the band that came to like the hangouts just because I was going to be there, not necessarily like as a yo-yoer, but they just wanted to hang out. Mm-hmm. But within that, they thought the whole yo-yo thing was kind of cool. So they would kind of mess around with it just to see, why I'm doing like the whole yo-yo thing. So, it went both ways, which is pretty cool. I've had some like people from the yo-yo community come hang out at some of the shows, when we go on tour. And then I've also had people within like the music community to go to like the competitions to hang out and to kind of see what the whole
that's dope.
whole fuss is.
You got like your own little family. Like when you think about it.
Yeah, no,
supporting you.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing that's really cool. It's just like you're able to like any place you go on tour, like whichever state or city, you're able to to hang out with certain people. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like you're basically you're hanging out with your friends, on the tour cycle,
Yeah, that's dope. All right. Do you mind if we? I'm totally holding it off. I want to jump onto like the whole project we're talking about, like building an opening song.
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing I'm trying to do with my podcast, right? Like I think one issue I've always had is being consistent, and I'm starting to like zone in on stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like one thing that would help is having like my own intro song. But I want to do something like original, not like let me just grab a YouTube song or Chuki Beats and just like use that because everyone else uses that. What I'm curious to ask you is for that project. Right now, a lot of my early guests on this have been bands and photographers in more like kind of the some not, but like some are more in that hardcore scene. What I'm trying to figure out is, okay, say, because you have a very specific sound, right? You shred and melodic and all that stuff. But if I was to start having like rappers and more like experimental artists and models, do you think you could come up with a track that in some way encompasses all those different types of personalities that aren't just like metal?
Oh, I see. It's definitely possible. But then I would say everyone's always going to have like, a preference, a taste preference. So it to me, if it was to be something that would satisfy like the general audience, it would definitely be in suit of kind of like, I would say, what's the terminology that people are always putting for like their YouTube channels, like the chill.
Oh yeah, the like chill hop.
You get those playlists.
It's like so, and I've done that where I've had lo-fi tracks. Like even in our last podcast, I did that because I think it's nice to have zone bounce. But it's also like, when does it get played out, kind of thing. And I'm like, I don't want to keep rehashing it, right? Because everyone's doing it now. It's like, okay, well, how can I be different but still do something that fits, right? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's where it's very it is tough to create something to appease like the general audience, because they're always, I mean, especially with, I mean, I hate to say it, but each side has like they're biased, right? You'll have like hip hop artists, if they'll listen to anything other than that, if they listen to like a heavy metal song, or if they listen to something else, if they're not open-minded, they're just gonna think it's like Satan music, or whatever. But then like, if you get like a guy who listens to nothing but metal, and then like he listens to like hip hop or something, like, oh, that's not heavy, or that's not so it's so interesting. It takes a lot of effort to make something that kind of meets it in the middle. So it would almost have to be something. I would think of like a commercial, like something you would see on TV. Like a kind of like a soundtrack you would hear, whatever that may be. I don't watch a lot of TV anymore, but probably nothing like with like heavy guitars or anything, but probably like somewhere in the middle of like maybe like a progressive jazz, or
interesting.
Would probably be the same thing, kind of like the artist, like Pliny.
Who?
His name's Pliny. He's a progressive like solo artist. Like in metal, kind of like Animals as Leaders.
Okay, I know that.
Yeah. So probably something like clean, maybe like sort of mid gain. It definitely needs to have like a melody, but then too, it depends on how long the intro has to be.
Yeah, that I gotta figure out still, because like I like having, like, I almost am like, one thing I for some reason imagining is like a Jackass intro, right, where they have like the logo, the song playing, and then like clips, like preview clips, but the song's still playing through it, and then ends with the logo. 'Cause I tried that with a few people and I liked it, but I'm trying to figure out, okay, what would again fit that, because a part of me is like, there's Chris, the business guy, and there's Chris, the old school Bonded Holy Grail fan. It's like, oh, it would be dope to have an Alex Lee song, but would that fit? And what part am I like thinking about? Like, which side of me am I using more for this track? And is it the right fit? But I figure at this point, you're such a, and this sounds like totally fanboy, right? Such a professional. Like, okay, he can figure it out, because that's kind of what his job is. Okay, let's experiment with this and see what comes of it. Okay, I don't think I've ever heard anything from you that's not like metal sounding, so it'd be interesting to hear if you create something that's not metal.
Yeah. Well, some of the solo tracks that I'm writing, it's not as much as like like thrashy or heavy. It's just more of like just good melodies, you know. It's very like video game and anime kind of inspired. So yeah, it's
sorry, I cut you off.
oh no, it's good.
I would say, like, I know in our last episode, our last podcast, we talked about like video game tracks. Have you thought? I could totally see that, like you doing like backing tracks or something for like an anime intro or ending. Have you ever like in general, like, have you ever thought about working with people outside of just like the more entertainment band space and like other?
Yeah, that was definitely more so of like a fallback plan. But then again, too, it's a matter of trying to figure out how you would get into that industry, because one thing is like, you know, with like touring and, you know, working with other bands, you know, that's one network of people that you know. Now you're diving into something completely different. It's almost like you're going to a new high school. You know, you have to establish a new set of friends. Okay. You don't know where to start.
Yeah, interesting. Well, that'd be cool. I could totally see you doing that.
But it would be cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Dope. Okay. Well, okay. I know we're nearing time. I'll go ahead and wrap it up. Damn. Well, I want to figure out like what's the best question to ask you. Well, yeah. I guess tying it back, now that you just kind of mentioned Holy's going on a hiatus and you're doing your own thing, do you see yourself and like eventually becoming kind of that solo kind of artist, like more like an Ingve or Mari Friedman, where like everything you produce now is just like, I'm just Alex Lee. I'm no longer Mari Friedman of Megadeth, but I'm just me. Like, is that like, maybe not like immediately, but in some point of your career, is that like the goal? Or
I wouldn't say necessarily like the goal, but it's just more of like a way to keep myself happy, you know, because a lot of times when you're making music for a band, you have to kind of work with the other guys to make a song that, you know, everyone's satisfied with. You know, if they were to allow me to make a song and you're getting like a 7-minute song, progressive, video game inspired, you know, track piece, but it's not what works for the band. So rather than, you know, just staying content, you know, with whatever you do release with the band, with the solo stuff, you're able to kind of just put everything that you've ever wanted to put into an album or even just a song, just to let people kind of see what you're about. It's not about releasing something for a certain kind of genre of music, or, you know, like a group of people that, you know, only like this kind of music, but it's more so just to kind of express yourself, you know, to what fully inspires you as a musician. You know, you're able to release this kind of stuff without, you know, worrying too much of like, oh, it's trying to sound like a different band. This is more so just, this is what I've always wanted to, you know, introduce, you know, basically to the world. Yeah. You know, this is my kind of music, you know, in my cup of tea.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Well, that's dope, man.
But we'll see. I don't. Yeah, because I mean, with this kind of stuff, it's not like, it's not as popular as it was in the 80s. I know we've been having like a small resurgence of like, you know, people that are doing like the instrumental music, you know, kind of like Animal Slater, the guy Pliny I was telling you about. There's another band like called Intervals, and then also, you know, like Jason Richardson and some others. You know, they're making it work for them, and so I just figured just to release something, because I've always had, you know, the question asked like, oh, when are you ever gonna do like a solo album? But it took me this time, you know, to really realize what I really wanted to do and what I wanted to put into it. For it to work, rather than like being stressed out that it doesn't sound like, you know, like a 7-string progressive, you know, gent thing with ambient music. So
that'll be cool to hear and see what you like. I feel like now, like you said, like you've done so much and your skills are sort of fine, like you kind of have that ability to put out what you want, right? It's just a matter of what it ends up becoming when you do it. Dope. Okay, well, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's
Oh, go
Oh, go
ahead.
ahead.
I keep cutting you off. My bad.
Oh, no, that's all right. I think that's why it took me this long too, because like I really wanted to take my time. I didn't want to rush anything as far as am I good enough to play a certain passage, or just really take my time just to, the music's for me to release out to everybody. It's not. I'm not trying to make a statement of like the best guitarist in the world or anything like that, but more so of just really showing people like the kind of music that I do like, into like the context of a song. So they'll hear parts of like metal, or like old '80s music, pop music, or video game inspired or anime inspired. So that's what I wanted to really um, you know emphasize with this release, is just to show everybody like my influences and
Yeah.
what it's become of. Yeah.
Interesting. So then at this point, I mean, kind of related, not related, is there anything that is hard for you to play now? Or like, is it like you
Yeah,
just
no,
think of it?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually more or less it's just if there's something really hard to play, it's because obviously you have to understand like uh, the scale positions, or how the person's playing a certain part and executing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, it's kind of just more so of like the technique that they're using. So it's kind of like you have to relearn certain things to understand it, and it definitely takes time. But I would say like things that would be like really hard for me to learn would be like people that play like those like acoustic pieces where they're being percussive with their hands, and then doing like all the tapping and doing
Oh yeah, I seen
all the crazy
drum
stuff.
covers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because that's I've never done that in my life, as far as like with the guitar. So it's basically jumping into new territory. So it's possible. I'd hate to say like oh, it's impossible, but it would definitely take a lot of time and effort to establish that kind of style of playing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's basically it. Usually, it's just more so just rehearsing the songs,
Mm-hmm.
and then just building up to the speed of it. Some things definitely take less time than when I started playing guitar, and I think more so of that is just understanding the instrument a lot better than like 10 years ago.
Definitely. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
okay, well, on that note then, before I sign off, when, I mean, maybe it's too early to ask, when do you think this album will come out?
Well, fingers crossed that I do finish the last few songs. I think I just need three or four songs, maybe a
Oh,
bonus song.
I thought you're just starting. It sounds like you've been doing this.
Yeah. So, since the start of like the quarantine, I basically have 5 songs just done, ready to go. I just need to get it mixed and mastered.
Mm-hmm.
But now with the idea of bringing in a real drummer, once the last 3 songs are finished, then I can set up the recording time to do the actual drum tracks,
Mm-hmm.
and then it can get mixed and mastered after that. So I'm hoping soon, within like the next 2 months or so, I might be able to release the first single, and then kind of go from there to see what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the biggest thing is just being able to continue to promote the album, or like the EP or the singles, or however it goes, because I've seen a lot of musicians that they get really excited, and they'll release like their finished product as the whole album, like on YouTube, or
Mm-hmm.
wherever, and it doesn't really get the traction, because a lot of people nowadays, they're so used to just like the album format's pretty much died out.
Mm-hmm.
So people look for like the the singles basically.
I don't know if you know
So,
someone named.
that's one thing.
Mm-hmm. I'll say there's this guy named Denzel Curry. He's a rapper, but what he's been doing is he's putting out albums, but he's putting them out like as like a video. And that way, if you want, but as a result, he's also not putting it on like Spotify or anywhere you would think it would. That way, if you want to listen to those songs, you have to watch that full video, right?
Yeah.
And I think I was like, oh, that's an interesting way to bring it back. Okay. But yeah, just throwing that away if you're ever curious.
That it's creative. It's it definitely takes a lot of effort to do something like that too.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, hey, Alex, I appreciate you joining me today. I'm going to let you go, and I'm looking forward... Well, one, I'm definitely looking forward to still talking to you more about how we might do this intro thing. But love to have you as a guest again, right, whenever, a few months from now. So that way we kind of keep a cool little recurring guest spotlight. But yeah, anyways, Alex, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I'll go ahead and stop the recording and let you...
Yeah, no worries.
All right, see you, man.